Mr. Fulham,
Here.
Mr. Grant,
Here.
Mrs. Hagedorn. Here. Mr. Leeds.
Here. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda? Hearing none, I declare the agenda approved as presented. I will now call for nominations for the office of president for the 2025 school year.
Can we vote on the agenda first, though? We need a motion.
Motion.
A motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Motion
To
to
approve the
approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
See a motion by Mr. Carpenter, second by Mr. Grant.
Yes.
Thank you.
You don't need to have roll call, right?
Yes.
You do?
Yes, thank
Great.
you. On the agenda. Mr. Carpenter, Mr. Carpenter,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Okay, now, we'll have nominations, we'll entertain for nominations for the president for the 2025 school year.
I will nominate Tim Carpenter to remain as president.
Okay, Mr. Grant nominates Mr. Carpenter. Any other nominations? If not, I declare the nomination for president closed. Mrs. Moore, please proceed with the voting for the office of president.
Okay.
We need a second.
I motion.
We don't need a second on this. We just need to vote. And as I go through, you could just say who you vote for, even though we only have one nomination on the floor. So just please cast your vote. So, Mr. Fulham,
Tim Carpenter.
Mr. Grant,
Tim Carpenter.
Mr. Leeds,
Tim Carpenter.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Tim Carpenter.
Mr. Carpenter, you're allowed to vote for yourself as well.
Tim Carpenter.
Okay, thank you.
You should have put it
Okay,
in.
at this time, I will call for
Just for shits.
nomination for the office of vice president for the 2025 school year.
I'd like to nominate A.J. Fulham.
Mr. Carpenter nominates Mr. Fulham. Any other nominations? Okay, I declare the nomination for vice president closed. Okay, Mrs. Moore, proceed with the voting for the office of vice president.
All right, I will go through roll call. Mr. Fulham,
AJ Fulham.
Mr. Grant,
A.J. Fulham.
Mr. Leeds,
A.J. Fulham.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
AJ Fulham.
Mr. Carpenter.
Mr. Fulham.
Okay, at this time, Mrs. Moore, would you please administer the oath of office to both the newly elected president, Mr. Carpenter, and the newly elected vice president, Mr. Fulham?
Absolutely. You can stand there, or we can go out here, whatever you prefer.
What do you want to do, A.J.?
Okay, then I will.
Yeah.
Shall we raise our right hand?
Sure.
Yeah. It's an oath.
Do you solemnly swear that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Ohio, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge your duties as President and Vice President of the Board of Education of the Monroe Local School District in Butler and Warren Counties and the State of Ohio to the best of your ability and in accordance with the laws in effect and herein to be enacted during your continuance in said leadership position and until your successor is elected and qualified? If so, please state, "I do."
I do.
I do.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to both of you. At this time, I will turn the gavel over to Mr. Carpenter and ask him to proceed with the balance of the organizational meeting. It works fine.
AJ, do you need to swear?
Hey, congratulations, guys.
Yep, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. All right, moving on. Section 3, Board Organization. 3.1, Approved Board Appointments. It's recommended the approval of board appointments. Legislative liaison.
This is discussion style where you can
Discussion.
just
Yeah.
state who you would like to, and then it'll be determined at the end.
I'd like to remain on legislative.
I also like to remain on legislative.
Tricky pencil here.
I would support both of those.
All right, so legislative, we have AJ and Tom. Anyone else? Okay. The Monroe Area Community Improvement Corporation. I'd like to have Tom stay on there. He's been
I would
doing a
like to stay
bang-up
on there.
job.
Yeah. Tom?
Butler Tech Liaison.
I'd like to recommend Mr. Guido. He's doing a great job as the president for Butler Tech. He's going to be right in the middle of a superintendent search, so I think it is important for him to stay in that role.
I agree.
I agree as well.
All right. Board Finance Committee.
I would like to continue on that.
Debbie.
I'd like to be considered for that.
AJ. Okay. Anyone else?
I can be a sub if one of
An
those two
alternate?
can't make a meeting. I can be an alternate, but other than that, those two can have it.
Okay. Missing one?
410?
Board
Yeah, right
facility.
at the top.
Just look how weird this is.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Double check here. Student achievement.
Student
Student achievement's not on.
Yeah.
Oh, we had facility committee. It printed weird on the thing.
Facility
Yeah.
and student.
And then we do need to vote at the end of this.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I would like to continue on student achievement.
Okay.
What are we on now?
I'm good with Debbie on student
Facility.
achievement.
Yeah, I'm going to be on facility. I would like to stay on facilities.
We're on student achievement. Student achievement.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought
Yeah.
you said facilities.
You want to do
I
it,
was
Tom?
asking my neighbor.
I'm gonna pencil Tom in here too.
Little Tom.
All
Little
right.
Tom.
So student achievement, we have Debbie. What, Hagedorn? Would anybody else like to help with student
Good.
achievement?
I can be a backup on that if we need.
I'll put you as an alternate.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. And yeah, that was weird. All right. And facility committee.
I would like to remain on the facility committee.
So would I.
All right, Dave and Tom.
It's going to be a busy committee.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I will take a motion to approve the appointments as stated above.
So moved.
Second?
All right, thank you, Mr. Leeds. Thank you, Mr. Grant. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham? Oh, sorry, Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Item 3.2, it is recommended the board approve the board meeting dates, times, and locations for 2025 as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions, comments?
Nope.
All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Item 3.3, waiver of reading minutes. It is recommended the board waive the reading of the minutes from previous meetings in accordance with section 3313.26 of the Ohio Revised Code. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Who reads them?
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. I didn't even consider a tiebreaker.
I mean,
Gee
just
whiz,
take it.
who is this guy? All right, any questions or no more comments from Mr. Grant? Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 3.4, approve 2025 memberships to the Ohio School Boards Association, the OSBA Legal Assistance Fund, and the Ohio Education Policy Institute.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions or comments? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 3.5, establish board service fund. It is recommended the establishment of a board service fund pursuant to Ohio Revised Code 33.15.15 in the amount of $20,000. And a reminder that it can only be used in performance of board duties. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any comments, questions?
Nope.
All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye. Motion carried. Item 3.6, approve legal counsel. Recommended the approval of the 2025 legal counsels for the Monroe Board of Education. Those counsels will be Enos Britton for general counsel, Dinsmore as the bond counsel, and Rich and Gillis Law Group as the board revision counsel.
So,
May I have a motion?
so moved.
Thank
Second.
you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 3.7, designation of newspapers of record. It is recommended the designation of the 2025 newspaper of record as the Journal News. And a note, as newspapers are experiencing lower levels of readership, the district recognizes the intent of the laws regarding public notices and will also post notices and/or links to notices on the district website. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions or comments?
Yeah, can we get him to do more?
Sure.
They started out well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not getting the recognition that we need to for the kids. And it's not, it's not the fact we don't call. They don't come. And I think that's ridiculous because, if we're relying on the website to get the information out, we put it out there, but we also need print because people are reading it. And the other districts don't have a problem getting information out there. But I don't know what we've done to them, but maybe we ought to do more.
I would agree.
So that's all I got.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any other comments? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Item 3.8, approve superintendent standing authorization for 2025. The recommend to enable the superintendent to carry out necessary district duties involving operations, finances, and purchasing. It is recommended that the board adopt the following standing authorizations for calendar year 2025. And there's a lot of them, I'm not going to read them all.
I think you're good.
You don't have to read all of those.
I think,
You can say items A through K,
yeah,
or, sorry,
A through I.
A through I.
Yeah. May I get a motion to approve the
So moved.
superintendent's? Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Any questions?
Oop.
Nothing changed from last year, I don't believe here. Same.
No.
Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Yes. Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried.
3.9.
Is it 9?
Treasurers.
Oh, it's down there, okay. Item 3.9, approve the treasurer's standing authorizations for 2025. Items A through K, you beat Mr. Buzzkirk by 2 additional items, so that's fantastic. May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Any questions? All right, Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
All right. Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. All right, Section 4, tax budget. Item 4.1, approve the 2026 tax budget.
Yes, I recommend approval of the 2026 tax budget.
May I
So
get a
moved.
motion? Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions?
Nope.
All right, Mrs. Moore, please.
I'll just give a quick
Yeah, go for it.
discussion on the tax budget. The tax budget is a required legal document. We are required to pass it by January 15th each year and then file it with the board, the county budget commission. And basically, it is establishing, it's what the tool that they use to establish our tax rates for the next calendar or fiscal year. So our 2025 tax rates, 2024 tax year to be collected in 2025 calendar year are the rates that they look at that, they determine the rates, and then they submit those rates and certify them to the state of Ohio. The only thing I will note is that they kept our bond rate at the 3.5 as expected, as we promised to the community. So our bond rate had not changed. I will also note, typically this year we would not have had any valuation changes since we had the big reappraisal last year. We would just have maybe some new construction changes, border revision changes, that sort of thing. But for us, having a small portion in Warren County, we actually did have some valuation changes because their reappraisal year was for tax year 24. So it didn't impact us greatly because of the fact that such a small percentage is in Warren County, but it did have an impact on our total valuations. And I will, once the tax rates are actually certified, I will have a presentation for you on the new tax rates and those valuations where they currently are. I just want to wait until after they certify those rates to the state. And because we'll have a resolution to approve those tax rates in March. So outside of that, this is kind of just a check-the-box type of document to get our rates established and certified.
Excellent. Any questions? All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. And with that, Section 5, adjournment. This concludes the organizational meeting. We will adjourn and transition to our regular meeting. So, hang tight.
Do all that.
Oh. Thank you for your service, Debbie. Oh, you're welcome. Or
Thanks.
Mrs. Hagedorn, I'm sorry.
Your OCD is getting you, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Did VP's gonna sit down here, he's gonna have to behave, I'm telling you.
It's like mom and dad, right? We gotta sit
Just for
between you
today.
guys to keep you in.
Keep you guys in check.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yes. Exactly.
All right, I'll admit it, it's fine. All right. All right. So welcome everyone to the regular board meeting on January 13th for the Monroe Local School District. Item 1.1, approval of the agenda. May I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Any questions? Okay. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Section 2, board liaison and committee updates. Item 2.1, legislative.
We got some problems in Columbus, guys. Matt Huffman is not a friendly guy to public education. He has stated that. He has stated that Cup Patterson, as far as he's concerned, is done. And that there will be, that we cannot, legislation cannot keep funding that. He also has stated that he is an ed choice person, and that there will be any, if he can cut any money out of public education, he will. The other thing he's going to do is he wants to have a referendum on the property taxes, and he wants those lowered. That goes along with what Thomas Hall put in. So that could affect us when it comes to the building, big time. But as of Friday, the legislature had not received the information as to what committees they are to be on, and I don't think that anything happened today. But, so they don't know what they're supposed to work on or anything at this time. So we will keep you informed. Mr. Hall will let me know what they, and I'm sure he'll be talking to Robert on what they're going to do. But we're going to have to, all public education entities is going to have to argue their point in Columbus, because it's going to be a tough road to hoe. That's all I've got.
Did Thomas say he has any traction on this?
Well, until he gets these committees, he can't tell. But he, you know, like I said, he is a big proponent. Thomas Hall wants these taxes reduced. And he put in legislation last time for the last committee, and they didn't recognize it. But Huffman said he would, so.
So what schools are dealing with is if the property tax is reduced, right, just like we had prior to 2024, right, we would see a reduction in local tax money to the district.
Right.
But then what Senator Huffman wants to do is he wants to reduce the foundation funding to local schools as well.
If you look at it, let's say that he reduced the taxes to, this gives, you know, say he reduced the taxes to 22%. What we lost, or what we reduced it to, he doesn't want to give back in state funding to the districts. He wants that money to go to the ed choice schools and such of that. That's where, you know, my opinion on that is, I don't care what you do with it, but let's have the report cards, let's see who's the winner when it comes to education for the kids. That's what it's all about in my book.
Which I believe they gutted that bill that you were talking about earlier about accountability for
Yeah, yeah.
private schools.
So, I mean, that's,
If they're going to be taking public money, then they need to follow the same set of rules.
exactly,
Pretty simple.
you know. But nobody wants to talk about it. If you talk to them about it, it's, you know, look at you like deer in the headlights. They don't want to talk about it. No. We need to, when I say we, public education needs to get behind that and start screaming for that to take off. And I think if we would do that, we would get the public behind us because, you know, they want the best for their kids. Where is the best? Because we're not playing, you know, we're not playing the same rules. Challenge. That's it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Leeds. Item 2.2, Butler Tech. I spoke with Mr. Guido this evening, and they have not had their January meeting. So I told him to stay home this evening because he had nothing to talk about. So I know everyone's sad they don't get to see Brett
to see
tonight,
Brett.
but you can FaceTime him later or something.
They are in the middle of their search for the next superintendent there. I believe I think they've held the first round with the internal candidates, I believe.
Yeah.
All right, item 2.3, Student Achievement. Mrs. Hagedorn.
Student achievement, we have a couple of items tonight. So I'd like to mention that the students from the high school band performed at the Blanchester High School competition in either solo or in the ensemble this past Saturday. So the following students received a 1, which is the highest rating possible. In the cello solo was Harrison Cash with a 1. The bass clarinet solo was Callie Powell with a 1. Alto sax solo was Nick Simmons with a 1. There was a saxophone trio, Nick Simmons, Jackson Manley, and Sam McClausen with a 1. And there was a flute quartet, Cheyenne Lamb, Sarah Han, Emil Holmes, and Alyssa Bell with a 1. And there was also a trumpet trio, Leo Wu, Kobe Combs, and Matt Hoop, which received a 2. So I'd like to congratulate all of those students. The next item I'd like to mention was there's a program, ECOT, which is Each Child on Track. It's a program that's used to ensure that students stay on track to graduate. Monroe is one of 4 schools participating in the program in the state of Ohio. At Monroe, there had been a 50% reduction in failures for students in the 9th and 10th grades. That's just huge. So the strategic plans for individual students has been implemented. Teachers, counselors, and administration meetings with students and increased communications with parents and guardians has contributed to this success, as well as after-school study tables and Mr. Duff working one-on-one with the students. So lots of work has been put into play for this program. Monroe's participation was recently recognized in the Hamilton County ESC newsletter, and I'd like to read a paragraph from that article. So they stated that each child on track looks at research-based early warning indicators to determine which students need additional support. Using an early warning intervention monitoring system, we were able to intervene and monitor all students in areas of academics, behaviors, and attendance. These 3 areas are closely linked for student success. Monroe High School volunteered to be a participant in the project and has seen remarkable results. They started by focusing on Tier 1 in-class interventions and intervention planning to impact the number of core class failures. During first semester of the 24-25 school year, they saw dramatic drops in failures. In 9th grade, there was a 62% decrease in course failure, and among all students, a 50% decrease in failures. This data shows the impact adults can have on the success of students. We look forward to seeing their year-end of data. So I'd just like to congratulate everybody and to keep all the good work involved in that program. I know that it's a lot to get it done, but it's all good things for Monroe. So the next thing, I would like to invite Chloe Dykes and Addison Thornton from the Environmental Club to discuss their recent fundraiser for the Red Cross.
Hi.
Hi.
Do you have any questions, or do you just want us to talk?
Just want to tell us about the fundraiser, like how you came up with the idea and what you did and what the outcome was.
Okay. Well, I first had the idea because I was seeing all the news about Hurricane Helene and how Hurricane Milton was going to hit soon. And I wanted to do something to raise support and awareness of not only environmental issues like climate change, but also raise money for the hurricane victims. And so I brought it up to Mrs. Fortin and Mr. Prohaska, and I asked them if there was some sort of fundraiser we could do. I had 4 different ideas, but a talent show was the best option because the other ideas either involved being outside or other logistics didn't make sense. Mm-hmm. So I met with Mr. Prohaska, and we talked about what ways we could, like when we could have the talent show, what made the most sense for the pricing and other things like that. And then we met with the environmental club, and we all voted on which teachers should be the judges, how much we should charge for tickets, what talents can go which days, and other things like that.
So after the talent show, that lasted 2 days, 1 day for the people with C lunch and 1 day for the people with A lunch. We ended up raising $1,520 to be able to donate. All of it went to going to the Red Cross and supporting the people that suffered through the hurricanes.
Great job, guys.
That's incredible,
Thank
guys.
you.
Yeah, very good.
So is this something that you guys are going to continue to pursue annually, or is it something that you want to build off of, or was it just a one-time event?
Yeah, we're hoping to do it again next year and raise more money. Now that we have the first, like, people are going to know more about what the talent show is about, and hoping that more people will be involved next year.
I think that'd be great. I'd love to get invited if we're permitted. It's during school though, isn't it?
Yeah.
During school.
Yeah.
I'd love to attend if I can, because I think that was a phenomenal idea and a great way to give back to communities in need and showing a really great step in leadership. So great job.
Yeah, thank
Very
you.
good.
And thank you for coming up with the idea and talking to the teachers, Mr. Praska, to get that organized. Like, it just shows you that, an idea can come to fruition. Just asking the questions and organizing and learning all the skills to do that. So I think it's fabulous.
What was
Thank
your favorite personal act or presentation?
My favorite was me and Addison's. We dressed.
A little self-serving there.
Yeah,
But okay.
no. It was my favorite because we got to participate. It was the funnest. But my favorite, like, that was not ours, just because it was fun, was probably Harrison, because he had like
He played
he
the
played the cello. It
cello.
was really beautiful. It was
Very
probably my
cool.
favorite. Yeah.
Good.
Okay. And we do have a short clip video that we can watch of the talent show if we want to take a few minutes.
I came up with this idea because I was looking into the research of how Hurricane Milton and Helene affected the families. North Carolina and Florida are in desperate need of supplies, help, building new homes, and so that's why we're donating all of the proceeds from this event to Red Cross.
We made $500 just from the first day, and we still have tomorrow to go. So we're hoping to raise a lot more than that, but it was really successful.
We had 5 acts today, and we're planning on having 7 tomorrow. We're hoping to raise even more money tomorrow, and our goal is over $1,000.
And we thank everybody who came out and decided to help.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank
Very
you
good
very
job.
much.
Great
Thank
job.
you guys for sharing.
Can I just say one thing? I'm just proud to be the advisor of this club. Every year, I don't know how we're going to always top of what we do and everything, but just to show what students that we have at Monroe, this was completely student-led. I had nothing to do with it. She came up with the idea. She asked me. I told her to ask Prohaska, and it came to fruition, like you said. And I just want to say that they did an amazing job. Those two are, well, Chloe especially, because she came up with the idea and organized it all. It's totally student-led. Addison is the president, and then they got the entire club involved, whether it was behind the scenes, the people in the backstage helping out, whether it was people going to Hornet Times and announcing what it was. So I just wanted to say, you guys amaze me every year.
Very good.
And that is all for student achievement today.
Very good.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. All right, item 3.1, comments from the public. Seeing none, we will move on to item 3.2, superintendent update. Mr. Buskirk.
Well, Happy New Year to everyone. One more thing about the talent show. Not only was it a great cause that they're raising money from, but I love it when the schools do talent shows that just kids there'll be somebody that's in your class that you've maybe barely spoken to, and they get up there and like, I had no idea that they could do that. And it's something that's every year, it's somebody's surprised by a kid that has a talent that nobody else knew about.
Next year, Mr. Buskert can do some dancing or break dancing or something like that.
I'm thinking like
probably.
trick shots or something.
Yeah, something cool.
I don't want to lose money, so. I just have a quick update. I'm going to start with facilities. Obviously, we're deep into the gym infill project with the jail gym, converting it into classrooms. We've been working, we meet weekly, and we've been working with the architects and design and the CMR, looking at the design. Again, it's turning it into 8 classrooms, so there's not a ton of design, but the team has been done a really good job of looking at all the aspects of just a simple design like that, but there's still a lot of little details that we discuss. We are still online for actually getting the rooms that are currently the locker rooms there, converting those into, with budget allowing, converting those into small group rooms and offices, and we'd actually take possession of those prior to the start of next school year, and then the entire project being done December of 2025. So this time next year, we should be in that new section of the building. So get additional classrooms and some additional meeting rooms, which much needed space, which again, our plan, nothing is set in stone where everybody's going, but to shift the junior high and high school classes that have spilled over into the elementary and common areas, to get those out of there, so then the elementary has room for some of their specials and some of the, we all just been on top of each other for so long. Any additional spaces, it will be very, very welcome.
Yeah.
As far as the new high school, as Jesse and I say, we're ready to break ground tomorrow, but, there is processes that you have to go through, and we've been working, with OFCC. They kind of set the time schedule. We did have interviews for the commissioning agent last week, and somebody described the commissioning. You have the architects who are in charge of the design, the construction manager who's in charge of the build and install, but the commissioning agents are the engineers and company that oversee all the quality control, especially when it comes to the HVAC and the building envelope. They do a lot of testing to make sure, install of roof and windows and all that, so there's no water in the building, and then not only looking at the design of the HVAC, but, okay, that's a great for the HVAC, but is it maintainable? Is it serviceable? Is it, all that kind of thing. And then after it's done, they're also in charge of the controls and making sure that everything is working properly, and cooling properly, and heating properly. And there's always bugs to work out in that first year, but I think I shared that there was 3 companies that were all FCC approved that we interviewed. One of them that I think we're definitely leaning towards is a local company, which is a huge advantage. They're right down the road, so they've worked with us in the past. So we'll be making our decision on that here soon. About that. And then the next thing I want to talk about, again, just because we are very fortunate here in Monroe. I talked about it on last Wednesday at the student staff of the quarter. January is School Board Recognition Month, and we are extremely fortunate here in Monroe. As a school board, Amy and I talk about this often, that our school board is dedicated to the community. They support the staff and the students, and really their support and respect of all of us help us to make sure that we provide the best environment for all of our kids. As I go to superintendent's meetings in not just Butler County and Warren County, I hear stories, and when I come back, I say often, we don't have the problems that most of the school districts. And that starts at the top with the school board. You guys do a fantastic job of supporting us, trusting us, and with the best environment for students and outcome, and that is what your goal is. And so we very much appreciate that. we passed out those certificates, a small token of our appreciation. I also, we came up with these shirts, and if I, can I hold this up on the back? Because this is definitely our theme for the year, Build the Nest. The next 3 years, we are going to be working hard on getting that high school ready to open for our students. And again, the community supported that bond issue, and I think it goes back to the community's overall trust of the school district and the things that not only the staff do, but the support of the school board. So we greatly appreciate it. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Busker.
And that's all I have.
All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Busker. Item 4, treasurer consent agenda. Mrs. Moore.
I recommend approval of the treasurer's consent agenda as presented.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds.
So we have the typical minutes that are in there. The treasurer's report, again, December, especially with break going on, there's not a lot of financial activity in December in the general fund, which is what the monthly reports are composed of. We're still on track with our forecast, so that's good. But I did want to point out, in December, we did issue our first round of our bond anticipation notes. So the bond report this month does show those. Currently, they are separate at the bottom. So we issued $15 million, and we just had a pre-pricing call today for the next issuance, which is scheduled for January 28th. But they'll price tomorrow, so we'll know exactly how that's going to look tomorrow. And then we'll get the rest of the $21,750,000. And then once we get that, that rolls into our OFCC discussion, because as soon as I have all that in the system where it needs to be, then I will run a report for OFCC to show that we have the money in place, and then they can get our project agreement to the next step. So,
When we have those meetings, the accountants and bankers all get together, and I have no idea what any of what they're talking about, but Amy always gives me the dumbed down version after we're done. But they said today it was I heard very positive. The
It was.
rates are very positive for us right now. So.
yes, and we have a lot of interest in our sale, which helps them drive the rates down. They'll sell at a higher interest rate that's more appealing to the investors, but the investors will pay more for it. So it creates a premium situation, which we can use toward our retirement of our debt if we end up being a little bit ahead on the front end. So that's really nice. Now the bad side is that we also then turn around and invest those funds, and because it's a good interest rate environment, we might buy investments at a slight premium. But it all works out in the end, and we actually do make more money in the end. But they moved our pricing call up by a day because of some of the things they're hearing in the market, and that's why they wanted to go ahead and have the pre-pricing today, the pricing tomorrow. Hopefully nothing will change negatively in the next day. So by tomorrow at 11, we'll have that call, and we'll see where we are. But yep, so we got through phase 1, and now we'll do this one, and we'll be on the road for the project agreement to be approved.
So on future agendas, will we have the bond retirement fund and then also a bond retirement high school fund?
So, yeah, it's really hard to see this here, but the high school one there is at the bottom. I only plan to have one bond retirement fund. I'll blend it together. And then next year, so notes are 1-year notes, and they're in anticipation of issuing the actual bonds. So next year, these will mature in December. So you will see additional legislation to actually issue the regular bonds to pay off these notes, and those will establish our true amortization schedule for the rest of the period. But for now, we have the notes, we get those proceeds, and then when we do the bonds, it just pays off these proceeds and establishes our amortization schedule for the life of the debt.
Okay. Thank you.
I was going to, but it was pretty in-depth. But is all the money where it's supposed to be?
It is, yes,
Yes,
thank you.
thank you.
Should never be too sure. Dave.
Exactly. Just gotta ask.
And I'm now, sorry, I'm replaying one of the questions that you asked because you're not seeing all the 15 million in there, and maybe that was your question? Because those are in the project funds. So what you're seeing is the premium that went into the bond funds. So we have those bond funds established, and I'm sorry, yes, you're probably looking for the other dollars. They're in the project funds.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. And those are not in the normal monthlies because the normal monthlies focus just on general fund. I will probably be creating a new report that will be project related. Yes, that'll go with my regular financial report
Okay.
once we have some activity in those funds.
Cool. Okay.
Shall I call the roll?
Okay.
Item 4.4, acceptance of donations.
I didn't call the roll yet, though.
No.
Sorry,
Yes.
for the treasurer's report.
We're still on the treasurer stuff.
Okay,
The consent agenda.
yes.
Agenda for.
Okay, shall I call the roll? Or you have more questions?
Thank you for the donations.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was skipping ahead.
Yes, you were jumping to the end.
Woo.
Yes. Thank you for the donations.
Now you can call the roll.
Any other questions?
No?
Okay. Mrs. Moore, you can call the roll.
I will. Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Thank you, Mrs. Moore. All right, Section 5, Superintendent Personnel Consent Agenda. Mr. Buskirk,
I recommend the approval of the superintendent HR personnel consent agenda.
may I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mr. Buskirk.
This first section, we do have a couple resignations you see there, and we have another retirement, Mrs. Dirksen, who has been here for a long time. We have a number of retirees this year, so it'll be, that is, when you lose that wealth of knowledge and experience, those are always tough positions to replace, so. She sent us a letter the other day, and I, congratulations, excited, but also it's, sad to see him go. Happy for them in their next step, but sad to see him go, so. The next section is just extracurriculars for spring, a lot of baseball, softball, and track. I know Eric will be, especially track, piecing those together till the last minute. And then there was a revision to the swimming coach, and that was it.
All right. Any questions?
Nope.
Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
I don't think we
You
have the
did
motion
motion.
in second.
We did.
We did.
We did.
Mr. Grant
It was
had motion
Grant,
and
no second.
Mrs. Hagedorn
I
second.
missed it too, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I was reading ahead.
Sleep at the wheel.
Man, I got it. Don't worry about it.
All right.
Mr. Grant,
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn,
Aye.
Mr. Fulham,
Aye.
Mr. Leeds,
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. Section 6, Superintendent Other Business Consent Agenda.
I recommend the approval of the superintendent other business consent agenda.
May I get a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mr. Buskirk.
First one is approval of early graduates. Mr. Prohaski, you don't know off the top of your head how many there were. There's the number of early grads that we're approving. It's
It's around
like
12.
yeah, that's what I was thinking it was somewhere in there. So, but I know that Mr. Prohaska and the guidance office do a great job of making sure everybody has everything in order. And a lot of these kids are graduating early so they can move on to their next step, whether it's further schooling or directly in the workforce or military. And obviously, we always invite them back for the May.
I have
commencement.
a question about that. Do you, because the list is so long, do you keep get their contact information to reach out to them after to invite them
We
to?
don't shut down their email. We
You don't?
talk
Okay.
now, and they're all aware that they could still go to prom.
And everything,
And after
okay.
they go to graduation and all that.
Yeah.
We have the list, and we'll follow up with them in probably late April, mid-April.
Okay. Yeah.
All set.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear they keep their email, because I was just like that, when I saw the list, I was really concerned, like, it's big, I'm very happy and excited for those students to graduate early, but I do want them to be invited and hopefully come back and participate in prom and homecoming, or not homecoming, but graduation, because it is a once-in-a-lifetime thing, that I don't want them to lose contact, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, we talk, so they sign off on this, we sit down, it's myself, the counselor, we make sure we call the parents, they're aware of what's going on, and then everybody's on the same page.
Okay, good.
Next one is just a out-of-state trip. It's a indoor track meet in Louisville. And then there's a contract that's transition services for special education students. It is $3,000 per student, and I think we have, over both semesters, 5 students. So it'll be a cost of $15,000 total for the district for that. We do have one resolution declaring transportation impractical for one student going to a private school does not fit the transportation needs, so the payment is written right there. So, any questions?
I think so. All right. Mrs. Moore, please call the roll.
Mr. Fulham.
Aye.
Mr. Leeds.
Aye.
Mr. Grant.
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn.
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter.
Aye, motion carried. All right, Section 7, Superintendent Other Business.
We do have, for Section 7, there's no action needed, but it is the first reading of a number of policy revisions and some drafts for new policies. Actually, we've already been notified that there's another, with a lot of the legislative activity there in lame duck. There's going to be some additional adjustments that are coming out soon. And then my guess, as Mr. Leeds referred to earlier, once they get in and figure out what they're doing, I have a feeling another round of revisions again. So just, our Neola policy, they have attorneys on staff that work tirelessly to keep up with all the legislative changes to make sure all the districts are in compliance. So, again, this is just first reading.
We will all eagerly anticipate some new policy revisions then. And as a reminder, action will be taken in February on those. All right. There's no action on that one. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Buskirk. All right. Section 8, comments from the board. We're going to start right here. Mrs. Hagedorn.
I get to go
That way you don't have to be
first.
like piggybacking off anybody. You get to go
No.
first.
I don't. So I would like to say Happy New Year to everybody. And I know it was a rough start to the school year with starting out with the snow days, but you can't help weather. So just always want to keep student safety first, so that's always most important. I know they had left, but I'd like to thank Chloe Dykes and Addison Thornton for coming tonight to share their information with the fundraiser that they created. It's always good to see students take the lead, come up with an idea, to follow through, and that they're learning life lessons and life skills that will take them far. So I'm very proud of them. I'd also like to congratulate the early graduates. I think that's just amazing to see students, to finish their high school career. It's just, good things happening all around. I think that's really all I have for today.
Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Hagedorn. Mr. Grant?
Happy New Year to everyone. Good to be back into a little rhythm after the holidays, taking the time off from Christmas to New Year. I honestly had no idea what time of day it was, so it's good to be back into a little routine now. But I definitely want to comment on the environmental club, to take that from a thought and an idea to fruition and earn $1,500 for a good cause is something to be commended. So good job to them, and I guess we're in the last half of the school year, so good luck to all the teachers and staff for last half of the year. That's it.
All right.
You got it.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Mr. Leeds?
Well, I'll tell you what, this is an exciting time to be on the board for the school with everything going on. It's going to get busy with the with the new school coming on board and, or at least building it. And, you know, if you look around, the pile of snow out there in the cold weather, do you realize that our next meeting, we are less than 30 days to spring? But I gotta tell you, and we gotta look, Mr. Prohaskis has gotta send up, it's time for the agenda for the graduation. We normally get that in February, don't we? Okay, that's changed. Cool, all right. But I gotta tell you this, today I was in Indiana, because that's where I go get my cattle feed, and they had to tell me that within the next 2 weeks, long-range forecast is 12 to 14 inches of snow.
Hey, I'm good with it. It makes for a long ski season.
In the next 2 weeks?
Within the next 2 weeks.
Bring it.
Weeks.
So I told them to keep it in Indiana, we didn't need it, so we'll see what they do.
Really?
If it's just a half an inch over the next, each day, I'm okay.
Yeah, you're okay with that? Yeah.
I have.
But, no, it's gonna be exciting for everything going on, and, we're gonna be busy. So, that's all I got.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Leeds. Mr. Fulham.
Year 4, going strong. No, we thought we could do it, but we've got high fives from around the hive. High fives to the administrative team at the board office. Your work behind the scenes is essential to the success of our district. From ensuring our staff is paid on time to maintaining our buildings and technology, your contributions are invaluable. Thank you for all you do for Monroe. High fives to our We Hornet Youth cheerleading squads. A little bias here since I've got 2 daughters, but both our grades 3-6 team and our K2 teams showed incredible spirit and skill at the Ohio Spirit Federation state competition in Akron this weekend. The 3-6 team earned first place in their division and the Best Stunt Award. And a big shout out to our K2 squad for their first place finish while competing up a division in the 10U division. So I had kindergarten and first graders competing against second, third, fourth graders. So pretty cool. And high fives to our maintenance and cleaning crews who assisted with the removal of the winter snow that we received last week. I appreciate your dedication to keeping our school grounds safe and accessible. I think that we are all ready for spring now. Oh, I'm done. That's it.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that's
I thought we had more to go. All right. Thank you, Mr.
firing on all cylinders.
Again, this one's always interesting.
Yeah.
Ditto. Happy
Echo.
New Year. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. And with that, we will move on to Section 9, adjourn to executive session. The board is going to adjourn into executive session to consider the employment, compensation, dismissal, discipline of a public employee and the investigation. Is that right? There are so many on here. Okay. We'll stick with that one. Investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official licensee, or regulated individual per Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G1. No action will be taken. May I have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Grant.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Fulham.
Any action? You said no action?
No
will be taken?
action will be taken.
No action.
All right. Mrs. Moore,
All right.
please call the roll.
Mr. Grant?
Aye.
Mr. Fulham?
Aye.
Mr. Leeds?
Aye.
Mrs. Hagedorn?
Aye.
Mr. Carpenter?
Aye, motion carried. Have a good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
See you next time.
Go Lions.
Line's still okay.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Good with that.
Good.
Good old blue collar.
That would be a fun.
That would be a great one.
Line's bills would be
I mean, honestly,
admirable.
I'll be honest with you.